Starstruck.
Do you got your water?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I have my beer.
You have your water. I have my water.
Okay. Well. Welcome back to Joyride. I am Jared Brandon Flandy, and
I am Adam Mendenhall.
this is the podcast where we talk about all things transportation and adventure. And we are back for a part 2 episode. Our first part 2 episode.
Indeed.
All right, Adam. Come on. What's exciting about this? Okay, we just got done talking about the Captain Morgan and everything going wrong there in Panama City, and then we moved on to everyone is now coming to the New World more and more because it's just maybe less dangerous to steal in the Caribbean.
Indeed, yes. It's a little sense of adventure and change. I think that's the drive here, and people are seeking opportunity. And last we checked, opportunity was a knocking. Now, whether that's good or bad, well, you have to listen to the rest of the story.
You're a summer guy, right?
Oh, yes. So live for it.
So you probably would have done this.
I could see myself in that area. I would have been in the scene, at least in the recruiting scene there somewhere at some pub on some questionable coastline.
So there's we could probably go back in a past life. There's probably a portrait somewhere in Jamaica of a pirate that looks just like you because you just don't like bad weather.
There easily could be. I could see that.
I'm drinking to commemorate the moment of Pacifico in particular here.
How appropriate.
All right. And my script closed. That makes it really convenient. Call Apple on that one. Well, anything new and exciting while I'm looking?
Yes. Was at Comic-Con Portland here a few weeks back.
Ooh.
Met a majority of the cast of Breaking Bad. They were there signing autographs. I took my commemorative Breaking Bad barrel Blu-ray collector edition set, and I took the barrel itself and had the cast all sign the barrel. That was a lot of fun.
Really?
Yes. Now, Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul weren't there, but
Everyone else was.
For the most part, everyone else was. Yep.
Did you get any autograph? Yeah, you got the barrel autographed.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, the Cartel cousins were there. Those guys were hilarious. They had the suits from the show. They got to keep the suits and the boots, and they were in full character. So that was hilarious. They were pointing at people and then making motions like, we're going to cut your neck. And it felt the gravity felt real. I'm like, wow. Yeah.
All right, I found where we left off in part 2 here. Okay. But that was very, very interesting to know. I'm glad you got to experience that. So our last sentence we left off is our last page. We'll just start from there. So finding new pirates is not a hard thing to do since many people were leaving England to come to the New World. During this period in the Old Country, crime was not tolerated in the slightest. Harsh sentences were even given for the most petty of crimes, such as stealing a handkerchief. Many people in the Old World felt that if stealing in England was so risky, you might as well go to the Caribbean, where tales of great riches and adventure would make stealing far more worth the risk. Oh, yeah. Danny Ocean, if it's not a casino, what's the point, right?
Yeah, where's the appeal?
So, aside from taverns, many pirates were recruited after a ship was captured. They usually joined the pirate crew because they did not have much choice, such as death. So if you're on another ship they captured, it's like either you join us or we throw you overboard, basically, is what's going on.
Yeah, tough decision there.
So forcing people to walk the plank is another myth, since there's only one recorded incident of it happening in 1829.
That's surprising. I would have guessed otherwise, just from how it's glorified in so many films and stories.
So a lot of the stuff, especially from part one that we're talking about, is a fair amount of stuff about pirates you see in movies is accurate. There's a decent amount of stuff that's just kind of become mythologized. And so, like they're saying here, there was a recorded incident of it happening at least once, so it probably did happen, but it wasn't like, it wasn't this, they did it every time, and got out the popcorn, so to speak.
Yeah, that was going to be the consequence. You're walking the plank,
So despite some of these more aggressive recruiting tactics, pirate crews are considered to be some of the first democracies in the New World. When you joined a crew, a contract would usually be signed that, among other things, gave each pirate the right to vote on matters important to the whole crew. Flights on board were also, or flights on board. Yes, it's an aircraft carrier.
Flights of brew were on board.
Yeah. I'm sure there was plenty of that. Pirates having wine and cheese as the. I got at Golden Valley Brew Pub. I got a free flight of beer once.
Really?
Yeah, because I was actually with my cousin. He ordered one beer, and the bartender misunderstood, so he brought us a whole flight. And then he went, "Oh, you did say you wanted that, right?" So nonetheless, it's already there, so he didn't charge it for us, so we got a whole flight.
Well, for anyone that's been to Golden Valley Brew Pub, that's a small fortune in itself.
Yeah, exactly. So, fights on board were not allowed. If you had a problem with another crew member, you had to work it out on shore. So no brawling. When we get to an island or whatever, then you two go take it out in the parking lot, so to speak, and you settle the matter, or the beach in this case.
I wonder if it was an old-fashioned knife fight on the beach. Well, again, I'm referring to films and pop culture, right?
There was also a pirate medical program that gave you money based upon the severity of a lost appendage. It's pirate welfare.
No kidding.
In other words, or pirate union, I guess you could even say. In other words, you usually got 500 pieces of 8 for your right hand, 300 for the left arm or leg, and 100 for a lost eye.
What? Well, that's interesting on the pricing index there. Jeez.
Which would, like, if you lose an eye, I can't see the list.
Yeah.
If you're losing both hands, how do you write it, too? You just put the quill in his mouth.
That's the hooks for hands guy, right? Yeah.
So, yes, pirates did use peg legs. There was also rules of punishment that pirates agreed to. The worst punishment that could be dispensed upon a pirate was being left on a deserted island, and they usually gave the doomed man nothing but a knife and a Bible.
A Bible? Again, I wouldn't have guessed that. Interesting.
So that's kind of like Jack Sparrow when they did that. They just leave you there.
Yeah.
So, and I imagine the Bible probably in some regards was kind of a dark joke in some ways.
I would think the same. Yeah, in that atmosphere, it had to be.
Yeah. Some did survive, though, and this led to the inspiration of stories such as Robinson Crusoe. So, with such a strong democratic rules of conduct, life aboard a pirate ship was rather ideal for many members of the crew. For example, African American men were treated with the same amount of equality as other members of the crew. Many historians now consider the deck of a pirate ship to have been the best place for these men, and many of them eventually became high-ranking members of the crew. So if you're, one of these guys, your choice at this time is either you're going to go to a colony and probably become a slave, unfortunately, or you stay with a pirate crew and you're becoming an officer. So it was, in the long run, the better choice of the two. Well, tales of adventure on the high seas became the wonderment of many young boys who came from underprivileged backgrounds. But it was just not boys. Young girls also dreamed of running away from home to one day become a pirate.
Interesting.
One of these women was Anne Bonny. She was the illegitimate daughter of a lawyer and eventually disgraced the family by running off with a sailor named James. It could have been anyone because it seemed like everyone was named James back
Right.
then. So, yeah. Anne was also known to have a little bit of a temper. She reportedly cut off the end of another woman's nose during an argument.
Ooh.
So we talk about cat fights. That's a mountain lion fight.
At least.
As you can imagine, England proved to be a bit too tame for Anne, and she and her husband decided to make their way to the Caribbean. When they were in New Providence in Nassau, Anne dumped her husband and ran off with a sexy pirate named Calico Jack.
Well, that's quite a name.
Yeah. I mean, wouldn't you? I mean, I'm James. I'm Calico Jack.
Going with Calico.
Yeah, it's got a better ring to it. To consummate the relationship in more ways than one, they stole a ship and decided to take a joyride across the Caribbean. Honey, I got a honeymoon plan.
Puts a different spin on Gone in 60 Seconds, huh?
Yes. How did you buy this? No. But it's I got it. I stole it for you.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
It would not take long for him to capture a Dutch vessel. What else would you do on your honeymoon? Let's go steal another ship. Okay.
Of course.
Of course, it was Dutch vessel as well. Yeah, there's wooden shoes and that sort of. I'm sure of it. I don't know. It's powered by windmills. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So it would not take long for him to capture a Dutch vessel, and a rather good-looking young man of the captured crew caught the eye of the ever-hungry Anne. This is not separate from her new
Aha.
beau. Okay. His good looks definitely brought him attention, and those paying attention to him noticed he acted somewhat effeminate at times. There was a reason for this, and he eventually confided to Anne that he was actually a girl named Mary.
Spin?
A little spin there. Anne was a bit surprised at first, but certainly not disappointed, since in no time at all, her and Mary became lovers.
Aha.
So we got a throuple thing going on.
We do.
Basically. So that's the thing here. Most likely, Captain Jack was also part of this throuple, but the situation was not uncommon, since polyamory and bisexuality were very common in sailing culture at this point in history.
I guess that makes sense to a point.
Well,
Yeah.
you're on this little wooden world. Your options are limited.
You took the words out of my mouth. There's only so many choices, right?
Yeah, and we'd consider her trans probably by today's speak, so none of this stuff is particularly new. It's been around for forever. So, with time, Anne learned more and more about Mary. Like Anne, Mary Read was also born illegitimate, but her mother addressed her as a boy to pass her off as her brother in order to get more support from the father's family. Okay. So despite this, Mary's mother fell in hard times and eventually sent her to live with a rich French woman as her servant boy. Apparently this French woman either knows and is just also going along with the spin to help out, or she's not paying attention very heavily.
One of the two.
Garçon.
Yeah.
I'm not a boy. You used to be. So, it did not take long for Mary to run away, and she ended up joining the Spanish War of Succession as a cavalryman. So she's
Whoa.
in the military.
Well, her act is convincing, to say the least.
Yeah.
She's made it that far already.
After that, she became a sailor by becoming a member of a Dutch ship, the same one that Calico Jack and Anne claimed as their first prize. So, Calico Jack, Anne Bonny, and Mary Read sailed the high seas, stealing, plundering, and enjoying the life of being criminals in the warm waters of paradise, along with past life Adam, probably.
Somewhere.
It's not raining here.
Not yet.
This unique life would not last long for the merry bunch of pirates, however. Eventually, the law finally caught up to them off the coast of Jamaica. It was not hard for the authorities to overpower them. The pirates did not fare well on the deck, since nearly all of the men, including Calico Jack, were drunk when the attack occurred, and most of the other crew just hid below. So one half sloshed, the other one's just like, oh, we're just checking out.
We're just checking out. Let us know when we get there.
The only crew members that fought fiercely were the only two women on board, Anne and Mary.
Jesus.
When they were all in prison, Anne, fiery as usual, was not very sympathetic toward Jack. You think she said, oh, baby, it's okay. Don't worry. We'll work this out. You want to know what she said to him?
What'd she say?
She said, quote, if you had fought like a man, you would need not have hanged like a dog.
Jeez. Well, that speaks volumes.
He's like, I know, I'm really sorry. It was a poor decision. I'll do better next time.
I'll try harder.
Anne and Mary would be brought to court in Jamaica in 1720. Calico Jack was hanged November 18th in the same year. The women were also found guilty, but were not hanged. To the shock of the court, it was discovered that both women were pregnant. And according to English law at the time, a pregnant woman could not face the gallows. Jack's, it's not known, is assumed to be the father of both children. But Mary would have her baby, but they would both die of fever, unfortunately. Anne and her baby would live, but it has been lost to history what eventually happened to them.
Interesting.
So they left, and nothing is really known. Around the same time that Calico Jack and Bonnie and Mary Read were knocking about, so was another famous pirate. He was born in Bristol, England, and in 1680, and his name was Edward Teach, or at least most likely Edward Teach. With time, he became better known as Blackbeard.
Ooh.
Although considered a competent captain, Blackbeard was known to have violent mood swings. On one particular occasion, some of the crew members were playing a game of cards below deck. At one point, a crew member called out Blackbeard's bluff during the game. Blackbeard reacted by removing his pistol and retaliated by shooting the man dead.
Not much of a bluff.
No. Despite Blackbeard's temperamental nature, you could say, by 1716, he was in charge of a flotilla of small ships crewed by over 700 men. The flagship of the flotilla was the Queen Anne's Revenge. She carried over 40 guns and had a crew of about 300. So he's running a pretty big enterprise. Even with all this firepower, Blackbeard himself would experience an unfortunate demise. The Queen Anne's final days were not in the warm waters of the Caribbean, but in the cold waters of South Carolina. So past life Adam's like, God damn it, it's cold here.
Yeah, no kidding. It's not where I want to be.
Just if you only knew you'd grow up in Oregon. Blackbeard blockaded the town of Charleston, and the local magistrate and his child had the local magistrate and his child kidnapped and held for ransom. Blackbeard and his thugs held the port at mercy for 4 days. This caused the governor of Virginia to put a price on the head of Blackbeard. Blackbeard fought the good fight, but he met his death on November 22nd, 1718. It took 5 musket balls and 20 sword slashes to kill him, but only after the final slash completely cut off his head.
Jeez. Well, that's some.
He's like
that's a thick neck there. Apparently,
that woman from Austin Powers 2. Where why don't you die?
That's exactly it.
Well, it probably took his entire head to come off for him to die. So you could say he was tough. Second here. Even though Blackbeard was dead, the rumors live on that his buried treasure has yet to be found in South Carolina.
Ooh, in South Carolina,
In
of all
South
places.
Carolina, yep, where you can get yourself some hush puppies and some fried chicken. I don't know.
Yeah. There's a lot of things in South Carolina.
And treasure, apparently. Even though Blackbeard is probably the most famous pirate to have lived, this is not exactly a good thing. Pirates who are well known were, in actuality, some of the worst pirates. Good pirates did not bring attention to themselves in order to not get caught, and most of the good ones ended up dying of old age while enjoying the high life from the treasure they had gathered. So it's kind of like that fad theory that James Bond is actually the worst secret agent, because if he's considered the best and most known secret agent in the intelligence community, he's actually the worst one because he's not very secret.
No, that's right. Yeah,
it's kind
not
of the
very secret at all.
Same principle here. As the pirate age swelled during its peak, the authorities were no longer amused by the monster that they had partially created. That's back when they were, legalizing privateering. The Royal Navy was one such institution that was the thorn in the side of many a pirate. Ironically, the Royal Navy also had persuasive ways of recruiting new sailors. Living near a dock in England during this time could be a worrisome situation. And no, this was not just due to poor living conditions of the time. There were other concerns as well. In a very Clockwork Orange style, the press gangs were some of the most feared people in the Docklands. Now, I'm not saying they talked about eggy waggies and war, bowlers, but this is kind of, imagine the 18th century equivalent of this, okay? Press gangs were groups of thugs under the employment of the Royal Navy who would routinely kidnap men and force them to enlist in the Navy. So if you just find some guy that's is probably down, kind of the lower part of society, he's not going to be missed if no one finds him. So that's who you kidnap, basically. These friendly neighborhood military recruiters were only the beginning of the harsh treatment many of these kidnapped men would experience, though. Life in the Navy was not exactly pleasant. Sailors were served bread that usually contained weevils, weevil being like a little maggot thing. But getting a weevil-infested piece of bread was actually desired since it tended to give the hard, stale bread some flavor, even if it was rather foul.
Oh, interesting.
So the bread is so bad that even if it's a bad flavor, at least it has flavor now.
Oh, God,
it's weevil-flavored. Could I have you more of the weevils, please?
Hard to imagine.
Mm-hmm. Cheese was considered another tasty treat, unless you got a piece that had a cheese-eating worm in it. That they didn't like. I was like, no, we want the weevils, but we don't want the worms in the cheese. The only good thing in terms of naval catering was that each sailor was given a routine ration of rum.
Ooh.
Prior to 1655, sailors were granted a ration of 1 gallon of beer a day. Now I'm going to cheers that. I'm going to drink another sip of my Pacifico on that note. All right. This changed after 1655, since it was decided that storing rum took up less room in the cargo holds of the ships compared to larger quantities of beer. Spirits are just more efficient, in other words. It soon became common practice to mix gunpowder with rum to test its strength. If it burned, this meant the rum was satisfactory and probably at least 57% alcohol.
Oh, my God.
Strong. Sailors began to call these strong shots of rum a tot.
A tot, huh?
Hot toddy.
Ah.
So, it also started to become common for rum to be mixed with water in order to make it last longer, which is called grog.
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 Yeah, pirates' grog, or sailors' grog. Most of the rum drank aboard Royal Navy ships came from distilleries in the British colonial possessions of Jamaica, the Virgin Islands, and what was considered to be the finest rum came from Trinidad and Tobago, a place I lived for a while. So, and it is tasty rum there. The custom of daily rum rationing in the British Navy. You ready for this? lasted from the 17th century all the way up to, guess.
Ooh, I'm going to guess early 1900s.
1970.
Whoa! That's longer than I would have thought.
Since naval ships had become more sophisticated than they had been in the past, there were concerns of having heavily inebriated sailors operating heavy machinery. The abolition of rum rationing ended up being so unpopular, the new practice was soon modified to allow sailors to at least purchase 3 pints of beer a day, which is still practiced to the present. So I've been allowed to have rum every day for 100 years.
Yeah, so rum is good drink.
You're not taking rum. You can have beer. All right.
Beer?
Yeah.
That's water in comparison.
So, if you think drinking daily rations of rum until 1970 is a bit obscene, let's examine some other facets of naval life that in many ways justified allowing sailors to be, well, shit-faced most of the time. One of these was a rather humiliating form of public shaming. If an unruly sailor was known to be a recurring problem in the eyes of the captain, the sailor would be punished by having to unbraid a strand of rope until it made 9 strands of leather. He would then be forced to walk down a row of his peers on either side while being brandished with the whip he had just made. The whip was known as a cat-o'-nines, so they had 9 ends, okay? So if you ratted on one of your fellow sailors, this was known as, quote, letting the cat out of the bag.
Uh-huh.
So, as you can see, being a Royal Navy sailor was not an ideal life. When these men were not being kidnapped, the military, for the most part, attracted men from the more underprivileged end of society who simply had no other option in life other than to put on a uniform. In some circumstances, life was so bad in the service that it was not uncommon for Navy men to jump ship and become
pirates.
Life for a pirate was not always good, though. The bodies of pirates that were captured and sentenced were typically put into metal cages called, I don't know if this is French, gibbets, something of this. It's Gibbetis.
Like the bird cage, similar?
Yes,
something of that nature, whether it's square or round. Yeah.
Which were put at the mouth of harbors to warn pirates what would happen to them as they looked upon the bones of their fellow comrades. With such macabre tactics being commonplace, and Navy ships becoming more and more powerful, the pirate age began to wane by the early 17th century. This should not only be a reminder for them, but a reminder for people who are listening to this podcast right now. As much as we are fascinated by pirates, we must remember this is based upon an overly romanticized ideal of these seafaring scoundrels. Despite some of the social benefits that pirate crews offered to people, these were people who often had little other choices in life. Pirates were nothing more than common thieves, and some, if not most of them, were unhinged sociopaths who would hurt anyone who got in their way. With this in mind, how can you sum up the complicated life of a pirate? We love them for their unbridled love of freedom, we admire them for their sense of self-confidence and admiration, and we respect them for how they respected their own. But the truth of the matter is, pirates were not good people. Even though this might be the case, in a lot of ways, we must nonetheless acknowledge the legacy pirate joyrides have left for our entire globe. As with many things, beauty cannot exist without ugliness, and the life of a pirate is by far and large one of the best examples of this aspect of the human experience. In the end, a pirate's life may be questionable, but the life of a pirate is certainly not forgettable. And that is the end of part 2 and the end of our story.
Interesting spin on some of those characters. You know, you don't realize their origins or, again, how they ended up as a pirate to begin with.
And, especially, so much of our understanding of history is rooted in popular media. And there's some movies, just on that topic, that do get it pretty close. There's some that get way off. So, I don't know. Do you think most pirate movies would get, like, a C plus to a B score after everything we heard.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. I mean, I would lean more on even the C score on some of them, just how some of it seems over glorified compared to what we just heard.
What, you don't want weevil bread?
Yeah. God. The rum seem accurate with some movies. Your gallon supply of beer. I'm like, okay.
What part of the reason why they drank so much alcohol, which was just common for that time, is that it was safe to drink.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, sanitation and risk of drinking just even water. I mean, in general, but you think about dehydration on the open seas, right? I mean, all you've had is booze for the majority of the time. And when did you actually rainwater? I guess would be your
That'd
purest.
be about the only time you'd have fresh water, I'd think.
And capturing that and putting it in a jug, but yikes! But you're right. I mean, even the water they had in barrels, right? How sanitized was that? They were at risk probably getting dysentery or something.
Which was common. Death by sharding yourself.
Yeah.
Basically.
God. It's like, stick to the safe stuff, the rum and the beer. Yeah.
Now it's like, that stuff's bad for you. It's the complete opposite.
Yeah, complete opposite. Well, you think about some people. I mean, the alcohol withdrawal, what a real deal. I mean, they would get sick. You'd have to continue to drink.
That's the thing, too. And maybe we've talked about this on one of our historical-based episodes, but by today's standards, everyone was an alcoholic back then.
No. Yeah.
I mean, you never weren't not drinking. And so, yeah, you're probably right. I mean, that was the other risk. You couldn't stop drinking because the withdrawals just put you out of commission for 2 weeks.
Gosh, no kidding. Well, I don't know. That really left me with a thirst for more information on this missing treasure of Blackbeard's. I mean, who would have known? I mean, that was a surprise to me that somewhere in Louisiana there is where that ended up.
Yeah, and that's a good segue because I want to point out is like that's just, of course, that's a broad overview. Even though we put it into 2 parts, there is so much more you can go into, all those different little inlets. Also, a pun intended there of
absolutely
the life of a pirate. So. Well, with that done, let's see here. I think we're gonna close up shop. What do you think, Adam?
Yep, I think that's the final sale of the season there.
Alrighty, everyone. Or the season? I don't know if it is the end of the season yet.
Is it not?
I don't know. It's
the leaves are changing. We'll put it that way.
Oh, that season.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you were talking about the season of our show.
No.
I was like, I have to look.
They're turning yellow and brown.
Anyway, everyone, thanks for listening. And please remember, we are on Patreon. We appreciate any support you can give. If you're using Apple Podcasts, leave us a comment. That helps us get into the system. And also check out all the other social media links we have in the description box below these episodes. So on that note, we'll catch you later, and signing out.
Starstruck.